so going on to part two of today's conversation, we're going to be talking about types of runaways. And then I want to say, like, I want to say prevention, but like ways that we can minimize the risk of our teens from running away. And then when your teen, let's say, for example, as a parent, your teen runs away, now what? What can you do? Right. So we're going to be, taking you through, like what Scarlett said earlier, we like to offer practical tools. And what that means is tools that you can implement today, tonight, tomorrow, in your life, and to make those changes that you need. So when your teen, let's say you're in a situation where your teen runs away, we'd like to give you some tips, some practical tips of what you can do as a parent. And then let's say your teen comes back home. We'd also like to share with you some tips of how you can manage and navigate that conversation. And then lastly, Scarlett and I are going to be talking about, well, then how can we bridge this gap, right, between the parent and the teen? So coming together, we'd also like to talk to you a little bit about that. And then again, we're big on feelings. Just call us the feeling doctors. And then we'll share with you some practical ways of how you can share your feelings healthily, as a parent and as a teen. Because it's not just, just because the teenager's the one that ran away doesn't mean they're the one that has to get their stuff together. Like, no, that means you have to figure out what part you as the parent contributed into this situation. And that's what we're going to talk about as well. Okay. All right. Next slide. So before we go on, parents, you are not alone. We just want to, put that out there, because, and I'm not talking about, earlier we talked about all of these risk factors, right, of things that could be going on in the home, right? And I'm not talking about the parents that are, like abusing their kids at home. Like, that's not what we're talking about. Like, I'm talking about the parents that, let's just say, you think and feel like, oh man, like, our home is a good home. Our home is, we're doing all these things. We love our kids. I just don't get it. I don't understand why my kids still run away. Is it something that I did? Like, we want to speak to those parents and let you know that you're not alone. Like what Scarlett shared earlier tonight, over 2 million youths run away from home every year, and for so many different reasons. And it doesn't even mean it has anything to do with you as the parent, right? So if you are the parent to a youth that ran away or maybe even threatened to run away, you're not alone. And we'd like to just, offer some conversational things that we can talk about tonight. Again, there's a lot of stigmas that's associated with with when our kids run away, right? So let's say when kids run away, sometimes it's, in the Samoan culture, whatever you do as an individual is reflective on the parent. So let's say, my teenager run away, and I know for sure, first thing my Samoan community probably gonna think is like, I wonder what Sala and, her husband, like they present as all this and that, but I don't know, what goes on in their home, right? So there's always that stigma, and it's always reflective on the parents. It could be like, well, maybe who they are as parents, So we want to just kind of speak to that, parents, because sometimes it's like, there's a lot of that stigma that's associated with it, and sometimes the blame, and it's usually because of maybe even how the community or how people perceive you. Like what Allah said earlier too, it's like our kids didn't come with manuals. It's like we gotta kind of have to figure it out as we go as parents. So it's like they don't come with manuals, so then we're trying to figure things out as we go. So we just want to connect with, if you are that parent, if you are listening, watching this now or later on, just wanted to let you know you're not alone. Because sometimes as a parent of a runaway, you can feel powerless, and you feel like, there's, absolutely nothing you can do. Well, hopefully after tonight's conversation, you'll see, and you'll be empowered by some of the things that we will talk about, some practical things that we talk about that you can start implementing. Okay. All right. Go on next slide. So types of runaways, right? So you can show both, Scarlett, it's fine. So there's two types or labels that's out there in the literature about the different types of runaways. There's episodic runaways, and then there's chronic chronic runaways. So episodic runaways, this is usually teens that like leave home when something happens, like some kind of an event triggers them. So they get triggered because, you know, a specific event happened, and then they get this desire, this urge to run away. And then also for chronic runaways, these are teens that like would often like, and not saying it's all the teens, but these are often teens who manipulates their parents or guardians by threatening to run away. So that means if they don't get what they want, they will threaten the parents and be like, well, you know, if you're not going to do this to me, then, you know, I'm going to leave. I'm never going to come back, you know, things like that. And then usually would run away to like, you know, maybe their friends, you know, sympathetic friends or families that'll be there. And, you know, of course they'll share their stories of why it is and why it is that they're running away. And teens that are, these are also teens that will keep going back to a home that didn't work out because there's just not a lot of resources in the area. So even though maybe the home is not stable, maybe the home is not safe, but because there's nothing else there for them, these are the teens that will like run away. Maybe they will locate the teens, bring them back home, and it's like it's like a cycle. It just keeps happening over and over and over, right? Something could be going on, or all of those risk factors that like Scarlett was talking about earlier in her first slides. This could be with the chronic runaways, where they're experiencing a lot of these things at home, and then their default is pretty much just to run away. And unfortunately, in some situations, they get brought right back, you know, to the homes where all of these things keep happening. Any questions about this slide? Just being able to distinguish between episodic runaways and chronic runaways. Scarlett, anything you want to add with this one?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is in regards to if somebody comes to your house is to hear their story, but let's make sure we hear the entire story.
Mhm.
Because anybody who tells a story will always favor themselves. And so I would just say just have an opening ear to both parties and see what like we'll talk about some solutions later. So that's the only thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, for sure. And then also like, you know, how Scarlett just shared like the video about, it was talking about, you know, the importance of airing out our feelings, the importance of sharing our feelings. Well, for a teenager that's an episodic runaway, where anything that triggers them, like anything, like they don't get what they want, they run away. They run away to their friend's house, run away to another family member's house. Some specific event triggers it and they leave. They don't get their way, they leave, and then they'll come back, you know. And if you think about it, it's like if this teenager knows how to regulate their emotions, if they even know how to identify how they're feeling and communicate that, you know, to the adults in their lives, to their parents, to their caregiver, how awesome would that be to be able to help them resolve that, right? So even if like if you're the parent of maybe a teen that's like an episodic runaway, that's like whenever they don't get their way, they'll like, you know, go somewhere else and then they'll come right back, and they use that as a weapon, sort of. Maybe even that's like a sign of like, okay, well, you know, you're not getting what you want, and then you end up by responding this way. How can I teach my kid, or how can I be a safe space for my kids so that they can talk to me about what it is that they're feeling, and how can we resolve this? So that's a lot of like communication skills, you know, between the parent and the teen, right? And doing so, and maybe if you're the parent that's tuning in, you're like, well, oh my gosh, like I don't even know how to, you know, really communicate. Well, being able to come to these community conversations, but at the same time, if anything else, like there are professionals out there, therapists like Scarlett and I, that you're able to kind of, you know, seek that help, that will be able to share those skills and teach those skills as a family unit. Like they'll be able, like therapists are trained to be able to work with the family even, to help even facilitate what those effective communication skills can look like, right? So if this is something that you're noticing as a parent in your teen, where they just keep running away episodically, maybe that's like, what's, I think like a question we can ask is like, well, if their behavior is a language, what is my kid trying to talk to me about? If their behavior is a language, what are they saying to me? Right? So then that lets you know, like, okay, instead of like talking to me and letting me know what's going on in their mind, they're choosing to leave, they're choosing to run away. So then that lets me know as a parent, like, okay, then we need to talk as a parent and teenager and child, right? So again, I think this is where those effective communication skills kind of come along. But at the same time, like, these are also the things that Scarlett and I are just kind of putting out there every single time. The basic stuff, identifying your feelings. So if you have a teen that's a chronic runaway, episodic runaway, even if it's like, sending them, texting them the link of all of our different community conversations, where at least then they'll just be able to log on, and they don't have to show their face, but they can be listening into what's going on, because these are the things that we go into and we talk to anyone that's tuning in, talk to them about. Okay. Any questions or comment? No. Okay. All right, so I want to change this question. I meant to change it earlier, but totally forgot to change it, Scarlett. Sorry. But instead of like, I want to say like, how can we minimize the risk of our teens from running away? Because I think like if we say like prevent, right? I don't think we can try and do everything that we can, but we can never be sure that we can prevent our teenagers from running away. So instead of that, we can ask like, okay, well, how can we minimize the risk of our teenagers from running away? Well, some of those ways include connecting with your teenager. Like, quite simply, connect with them. Just like what I mentioned earlier, right? Discipline without relationship equals rebellion. So if you're trying to tell your kid all of these to-do lists, like to do this, do this, do this, and you don't have some kind of relationship with them, you don't have a connection with them, you're not asking them how their day is, you don't even know who their friends are anymore, right? You don't even know what their interests are, what their goals are. You don't even know yet if their favorite food has changed, because you know what? Those things change over time. And you might still think your kids' favorite food is mac and cheese because that's what you made for them when they were like 5 or 6. But then you're like, oh yeah, their favorite food is mac and cheese. Like, no, it's not. They're teenagers. Now they like something else, and you have to update your own information up here as a parent, right? So it's so important that like these are some of the ways that we can like, kind of minimize those risks of our teenagers run away. Have a connection with them, have a relationship with your teenagers, right? Another thing we can do is try reframing your teen situation. Reframing is a tool that we use so much in therapy, and it's a way where we could have a client come in, and all they're coming in with is just their problem situation, and maybe it's like such a negative thing that they're going through, and maybe even how they're thinking about it in their mind is really negative. And so sometimes what we try to do as therapists is we take what they're coming in with and we reframe it, we change it, we reconstruct their thoughts, and we just kind of offer them a different way of thinking about their situation. This is another way that you can connect with your teen. Like if your teenager is coming to you with whatever it is that whatever problems that they're going through, what is a different way that you can instead of like being the fix it Felix. I always use the fix it Felix, right? Because we don't want our kids to hurt, we don't want them to be in pain, we want to solve their problems. Like if our kids come to us with a problem, we want to be the ones to solve it. But you have to remember that at this age, like they are very, like they're at the age where their autonomy is important to them. So them understanding how to even figure things out for themselves is key. So then if they're coming to you with a situation or with the problem that they're going through, how can you be like, sort of the type of parent that will be able to like help them to change how they're thinking about their situation? So trying to reframe your teen situation, whatever it is that they're coming to you with, whether it's relationship, whether it's about school, or whatever it is that they're experiencing. And then 3, recognizing when your teen is in trouble. I think like if you have that connection and that relationship with your teen, more than likely you know their baseline. You have an idea of what your teen's baseline is. But if you don't have that connection as a parent, to your teen, if you are so busy with life, busy with everything else that, you kind of really don't have sort of a baseline connection with your teen, it's really difficult for you because like they could be in getting into trouble, they could be experiencing things, difficult things that they're going through, but you're not catching up to that, you're not aware of that because maybe you just haven't noticed, right? So then how can you as a parent be able to recognize when your teen is not functioning in that, like, okay, like, I know my kid inside out, like this is, I notice that like whenever he's, kind of saying this or responding in this way, he's not eating, then I know something's up. I can just tell, right? That's how tuned in I am to my kid, right? But again, it goes back to that first point of like just ensuring that you have that relationship with your teen. And then seeking professional help. Like sometimes, like Allah said earlier, look, we get it. We are not, as parents, sometimes our teenagers go through things that even we as parents are not equipped to be able to help them. And that's okay to acknowledge. And that's why it's like it's okay to be able to say, okay, you know what? I don't understand. I don't know what you're experiencing right now. You say you're going through depression. I have no experience in working with people that's like depressed. But you know what? Are you open to talking to someone that is really specialized in depression and anxiety? What you're going through this, like, you know what? I'm not. So sometimes as parents, it's so important for us to be able to recognize when we need to seek help outside of ourselves, right? And be able to take that step. So seek the professional help. Once you recognize that, like, okay, all right, something is not right with my teen, something is definitely going on. Then how can I, as a parent, be able to be like, okay, you know what, this is way beyond even I can, I can be able to help as a parent. So this is where I'm gonna go ahead and get the professional help that can truly help them. Okay. And then lastly, parents, we need self-care as well. It's so important for us to have self-care because like sometimes we could be with all of the different hats that we as parents wear, whatever that looks like for you, but you need self-care as well, because if you are just going off of fumes, right, if your self-care is not up to par and you're just going off of fumes, it could be situations where your teen is going through something, you're coming home from work and maybe it's been a long day, you're running off of fumes because you haven't done self-care, and guess what, next you are exploding and you are just kind of like being explosive to your teens, to your family, to your kids, and whatever that looks like. And next it's like it's a whole situation, right? So it's so important to like even as a parents, like we all need the self-care, because if we are not able to take care of ourselves, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to try and take care of someone else, right? And our kids, like, they need us like every single time. They do. No matter how old they get, they're always going to need us. So how can we as parents even be able to like recognize, like, okay, I have been working a lot, I've been going to school a lot, I've been doing all of these things. I really need to take some time to be able to pour back into myself, and whatever that looks like. So that's also important, because doing self-care for you is what will contribute to, it flows down to like how you are parenting your kids, how you are being a partner in your relationship. So it flows to every other area of your life. Any questions or comments on this? And Scarlett, if you want to add anything.
The only thing I wanted to add as you were talking, because I know discipline is really big you know, in our culture. So one of the things I always encourage parents, specifically, and parents to do is like when you discipline, also to remind your child that you still love them. A lot of times when we get disciplined, we don't feel like we feel less loved. And so we have to make a distinction between their behavior and their self-worth.
Mhm.
So for example, when I disciplined my son, I said, I ingrained in him, I still love you no matter what. It is this behavior that bothers me. So again, I just want to encourage you, if you're going to discipline, also remind them you still love them no matter what.
Mhm. Yeah. Celie, did you have anything?
Well, the only caveat to that is, when I was getting disciplined by my parents, they would be like, "I beat you because I love you." I was like, "Bro, this is an interesting way of showing love right here." Um, so, not
Yeah.
not discarding what Sister Scarlett said, but it just brought flashbacks of when I was a kid.
For sure. For sure. All right. So like what I shared before, like those are some of the, well, again, like those things that we just shared in the previous screen. Those are some ways that you can minimize the risk of your teenager running away. Minimize the risk of them running away, because remember, there's so many different factors that goes into why a teen would run away, but those are just some ways to be able to minimize those risks, right? So let's just say you've done everything that you could as a parent to be able to minimize the risk of your teen running away, and your teen ends up running away anyways, despite doing everything else that you do right? So you did everything right, but your kids still run away. Now what? Right now, what can we do? And I think like these steps are just very, very practical, right? Because you're at the point where you're the parent, you notice like, okay, my kid's been gone for like more than 24 hours now. Like I am freaking out at this point. So these steps are very practical. So first one, like, of course, call the police immediately. Don't wait 24 hours. Ask investigators to enter your teen into the National Crime Information Center. So there, with this database, there's no waiting period if your teen is under 18 years old. So that means once you enter your information in there, like they have it and they'll be able to share it and get it out. And then call everyone your teen knows and list their help. Again, these are practical things, because sometimes it's like we get parents that's like, well, I don't know. Sometimes for parents, like we don't even know to if it's worth calling the police, like worth in a sense. It's like, is this something, like, what if they do come back? What if I call and then they do come back? Then I'm gonna be really ashamed and I'm gonna be really embarrassed that I called them for nothing. When they could probably be out with their friends. But like, no, it's better safe than sorry. Just go ahead and call the police immediately, and start calling everyone that you know or that your teen knows as well, and see if they could help. Another resource I found was leaving a message at the National Runaway Switchboard. So with this one, 1-800-RUNAWAY, with that switchboard, it's so cool. So I guess it's one of those databases where a lot of the teens reach out with this number. Like if they are running away and they reach out to this number in order to give them guidance or like to give them the resources of where they need to go as a runaway. So you can call this switchboard and you can leave a message for your team. And I think it'll like just walk you through like their process and how they do it. So again, these are just practical, very, very practical ways. You can take a snapshot of this if you feel like you're gonna need it. I think it could also be in our event summary for tonight. And then like another practical thing you can do in the moment is being able to search your teen's room, look for clues, look at their social media accounts. If you have location tracking on their phone, log on, track, and see what calls that they've been made. See if you're able to contact their carrier, their phone carrier. Just any clue to let you know, hopefully let you know where they could possibly be. Right? Like we're at the point where it's like, you're worried something could possibly be going wrong. And these are just some practical steps that you can do right then and there if and when your teen runs away. Okay. Any questions, comments? Scarlett, anything you want to add on that one? Okay. So let's just say, you as a parent, you talked about all of the ways that you can minimize the risk of your teenager running away, and then they end up running away anyways. Gave you some steps of some practical tools that you can do right then and there if and when it does happen. So now we're at the point where, let's say your teenager comes back home. Now what are we gonna do? Right? And this is really key, because this is kind of starting to build that bridge, right, to reconnection with your teenager. So your teen comes home, maybe they found your teen, they ended up being at a friend's house or something, and they're home. This is where, as soon as they are home, as soon as they come home, make sure that you take the time to be able to decompress. You as a parent decompress, because guess what? Your fight or flight senses were way up, because you're trying to look for your kid, you're worried, all of these thoughts are going through your head, worst case scenario of what could be happening, all of that. You are in a heightened emotional state at that point, right? Up until the point where now your kid is home safe. So you need time as a parent to decompress, the teen as well. Right? Because maybe this teen is like bombarded with like, dude, your mom's looking for you, got the cops out there looking for you, everybody out there, everybody and their mama out there looking for you. And now this teen is probably experiencing a lot of anxiety, a lot of emotions, feeling overwhelmed. Who knows what they could be, but whatever it is that they are experiencing, the parent and the teen, take the time to decompress. This is not the time, as soon as they walk in the door, where you as the parent is going to be like, where were you? What happened? What did I do? Nope, this is not the time for that. Okay. As soon as your teen is home, they are safe, take the time to decompress. Okay. After you take the time to decompress, let's give it maybe, 2 days or something, to be able to like get everybody calmed down. And then when the time is right, this is where you get to ask the questions and listen, right? Ask the question and listen. Don't ask to respond, ask and listen. Okay, as a parent, this is important. And some of the questions you can ask can sound like, why did you leave? Because I know that's the question that we as parents want to know, right? It's like, well, why did you leave? What's going on? So we're not again, tone is everything. So we're not going to be there like, why'd you leave? Oh, look, we just decompressed. We want to stay decompressed, right? We don't want to keep heightening things up. Okay. So in a gentle tone, of course, being very, very open, you're asking and you're listening. You're not asking to respond. So just ask and listen, take the time. When the time is right, ask and listen. And then once your teen have shared, maybe the reasons why, remember, you're not trying to respond, you're not trying to justify, you're just listening. And then when it comes to the right time, then you can tell your teen how you feel, how you felt when they ran away. I was scared. I was really scared when you ran away, because I didn't know, if you were alive, or if, something could have happened to you. I was really scared. Right? So this is where you get to tell them how you felt when they ran away. And then also, like, this goes back to what Scarlett was saying. Remind your teen that you love them. Remind your teen that you love them. And then also, like, if this is not the first time that your teen has run away, then I would recommend let this be a time where you're also talking to your teen about getting some professional help for family therapy. Okay. Any questions or comments? Good. Okay. Got you. Keep it moving. All right. So this is our coming together, right? So this is where we get to come together, and where, we as the parent and the teen, where we get to kind of like bridge that gap and be like, even as a parent, because the parent, I must speak on the parent, and Scarlett can speak on the teens. But as a parent, I'm not going to be like, well, they're the one that have the problem. I don't know why they ran away, but, I'm all Gucci over here. I'm good. It's like, they the one that need help, right? So, but no, that's not what we want. As a parent, this is what I want you to reflect on. What was my contribution as a parent to the problem? Yeah. Right. And this can actually be for both. This can be questions for like both reflection for the parent and the teen. how did I contribute to? Because parent, guess what? One way or another, like you know, probably had some kind of contribution in there somehow. Who knows? But if you do, it's so good to be able to reflect and gather that information. Like, how did I contribute to the problem?
Mhm. For
Right?
sure. You know, and to talking with the teens part, so one of the things I always talk about with teens is like, you know, tell me, I asked them, how did you contribute to the problem? They're like, oh man, I didn't do nothing. I said, what I know about human behavior, people just don't act out for any reason. So you have, what was your part in this? So they're really
Mhm.
sit within, they'll be like, oh man, well, my mom asked me to do this and I didn't do it. I had an attitude. My dad asked me to do this. I had an attitude. So then we start digging, what's the attitude for? So again, they contribute in some way, somehow, but again, it's that slowing down process that we have to do because all they just see is that fight or flight, that reds, I'm in danger. I need help. I have to protect myself. So we really tried to undo that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And then not only that, like being able to like not just be able to sit with how did I contribute to the problem, but like, you know, now what? How can we move forward? How can we both contribute to the solution of like how can we make sure that, you know, I as a parent can learn from this? How can I support you? How can I help you, my kid, my team, right? And then the same, I think like to for both parties to be able to be open to not only reflecting on how they contributed to the problem and how what they would be contributing to a solution.
Yeah, because the teens, like I said, the teens I work with, they always try to put it on the parents, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, no, so let's remove your parents. What can you, one thing you do better? So it's
Mm-hmm.
again, and that's them contributing to the solution. So because everybody plays a
Mm-hmm.
part in this somehow, it's not one side or the other.
Yeah. And I also want to add how like you know, and we understand if you're if you as a parent and you as a teen don't get this, don't understand this, right? Like I said, like we're not taught this. Like we don't know this. It didn't come with like a manual, a book for us to know how to do this, an instruction manual. No. So this is why, because things like this coming together and being able to work out these questions, this is something that therapists are able to do in family therapy,
Mhm.
right? So this is something a professional is able to help you and your family navigate through.
Mhm. You know, and that's the thing you know, again, to emphasize what Sal is saying, when we do family therapy sessions, we really work on not just any type of communication, but how to effectively communicate. So,
Mhm.
because there's a big difference. So you can communicate and still not be saying anything. So again, we talk about effective communication. So, um, so the last thing, again, feelings. We want to talk about our feelings and how to start sharing them healthily. Again, like we've talked about them before in our previous conversations, community conversation, is you have to identify what makes you feel emotionally safe. Again, we are
Mhm.
truly not taught about emotional safety because again, that's just wasn't taught to our communities, and we definitely want to teach our communities that. So it's tone, language. Do you need directness? Do you need softness? Do you need somebody to hold your hand? Do you need advice? Do you need a listening ear? So those are some of the things that you can identify literally of what makes you feel emotionally safe. Next, use a feelings wheel.
Mhm.
Please. Please. And so in the event summary, I have attached a feelings wheel in that in the packet, so you will have that. Again, identify your surface, middle, and root feelings. The root feeling is the one that's important to identify because that is often the one that we dismiss and then we don't address because it's important to address that one. And again, share with an emotionally safe person. Again,
Mhm.
and I always tell teens and parents and adults, I said, go to the person who you feel will actually help you, not the person you think will help you. Because
Mhm.
sometimes, unfortunately, it's not our family. It's just not, you know. And I just want to be upfront and real about that. Journal is another way. Like I said, journaling does not mean you have to write. You can video blog, you can use art, but we have to. One of our big proponents is you have to give whatever's going on inside of you a space. Just like we give our positive feelings a space, we have to give our negative feelings a space. Because remember, as the video said, the more you address it and talk about it, it actually relieves and reduces the intensity.
Mhm. Intensity.
intensity. And then lastly, take a break. Sometimes we just need to take a break from our feelings so we can reset. And also when you take a break, it reduces stress. You know, because sometimes we have so many things that we don't know that we're feeling, and we just gotta sometimes sit with it and think about, what am I feeling? So I've shared this before in a previous community conversations. Friends will ask me, "Hey, Scar, how are you doing?" And I said, you know what? I don't know how I'm doing. Let me go look at my feelings, and then I'll get back to you. And sometimes it takes me a minute. I don't just call them back right away. Like I really have to sit with it, because sometimes some days are just overwhelming, and you have to really like, what are all the things that I'm feeling? Because as we said before in our previous community conversation, is that you can experience up to a combination of 34,000 feelings. And so if you don't know how you're feeling, yeah, it's okay. So let's take time to figure that out, because we don't always have to have the answers. And so one of the things Sal and I always really want to emphasize is like, we don't have to know the answer right away. Like you can give yourself permission to figure it out. Sal, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes, with that being said, come to our Know Your Feelings class, because that is our basic, core conversation. And we understand why it is, because it really does tie into everything that we do talk about pertaining to mental health. It's so important. So you can see, like, it's your feelings. You talk about runaway and parents. It's like, well, they're feeling things. So, but they're not talking about feelings because maybe they don't know how to identify what those root feelings are and all of that stuff. So this is part of the work that we do with our clients, and this is what we are sharing and what we continue to put out there in our communities, and regarding any topic that we're talking about. So come to our next one.
Yeah, because in every conversation that Sal and I have, we always emphasize feelings. And it's important to continue to identify, because that's a part of who we are. And it's important that you understand, again, because it helps you understand you. Because if you don't understand you, I'm not going to understand you. So what makes you think your kids are going to understand you? And it's the same thing I say with teens. If you don't know what's going on, how am I supposed to know what's going on? So we got to talk about how to identify our feelings. So that being said, that is the conclusion of our community conversation. And so this is Solentine Information. Thank you all. And so is there any last comments or questions? And Celia, is there anything on the Facebook? And I'm going to get what you call it? The event summary.
Event summary?
Yeah, I was like, what is it called? Yeah, so let me see. Here we go. Yeah.
All right.
So we put it in the chat. And so we have asked a big favor, if you could actually fill out the link survey that Celia just put in the chat. And if you are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, if you all could fill that out, whether you are on live or rewatched it, that really does help us. And that just really does help us continue to promote these classes and put these sponsored classes out for our communities. And so, Celia, is there anything in the Facebook conversation that you need to? Well, sorry, my phone went off. Yeah, does anybody in the Zoom have a comment or have a question before we end tonight's community conversation? And again, if you have questions, you can still contact us. We will answer them. Again, if you're on the Facebook Live, any of the social media platforms, if you have questions, please put it in the comments and we will answer them as well.
No, nothing. Just a lot of affirmation to what you guys were saying. I was having a hard time there unmuting, but I jokingly put on there when Sala was talking about, coming together with your kids. You either get the prodigal son approach, or you get the hey, you sibling, go give me that belt so I can take care of this youth. No, but I mean that's different strategies, right? That's different tools in our toolbox as we're learning. I have young teenagers. If those two disappeared, I would be freaking out. Even though I was very independent as a young person, but to my parents' dismay, I was a hard kid to raise. So I was like, man, I couldn't raise myself. because I would be beating that little Sealy kid, just as my parents beat me. But again, different tools that we're providing here thanks to Sala and Scarlett. That's why they're leading the class and not Hood Rat Sealy. But with that, yes, please do fill out that survey. We don't have any gift cards to give out, but it really does help when we approach funding. King County has actually invested a lot in us Pacific Islanders talking about mental health, and we want to continue this conversation. Just a technical thing is we will not be meeting next week because we will be watching tackle football games and eating a lot of food. Hopefully, if
Lot
you
of
do
turkey.
celebrate Thanksgiving, I know some people do not celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day for their own personal reasons. But we will be back on November 30th.
Yes. Stay
Paula,
of the
did you want to
month.
say anything?
The
Because
last
I
day
see
of
you're
the month.
unmuted.
Yeah, I am sitting here. First, I was guilty because knowing your kid's feeling, and then I'm laughing because Sala hit right on the nail about don't be that parent that like when your child ran away and then she
I think she
Cutting off.
muted herself.
Oh,
I-
Ala, I
I-
think
I
you
was-
muted.
Sorry.
I was that parent that like all overboard, like where did you go, like so and to tell you the truth, like this, I'm telling you, the silly, thank you for inviting me, because I'm telling you, I'm learning so much from this conversation, because I am that parent, like but now learning that we need to tone it down and just like be a safe parent, like asking question. And I'm always loud. If my kids are on this call, they would totally tell you the thing about our mom is that she's always yelling. And I keep telling them, I'm not yelling. This is just my tone. So, and that's the thing that I'm hearing right now. It's like, oh, okay, our tone really does matter, because, I'm really loud, but then I come across like I'm mean, or I'm, in that authoritative kind of figure. And then it kind of like, sometimes people has a hard time approaching me. I'm really friendly, but I'm just loud. But, learning from tonight, our tone really, does something. So thank you, ladies, so much. I just wanted to touch on that because I'm laughing here because I'm like, oh my gosh, that totally takes me back when my daughter, decides to go with her friends. And here I am driving around the neighborhood looking for her, and everything is on my mind, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to find my daughter in like a bush. Somebody, killed her or murdered her. Those were all thoughts. But I thank God for wisdom, and I thank God for knowledge. Also sharing, today, it kind of like, give me a lot of tools. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. From all us Pacific Islander parents out there, thank you so much for having, the boldness to share about this issue, because our community needed to hear this. And thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Ala.
Thank you,
Ala.
Talo.
Thanks, Ala.
Great
Yep.
topic.
Yeah. My kids are the same way. They're always like, "Is Nana and Auntie Lou mad?" No, they just talk like that. With that, well, I just want to give the last word to Voices of South Pacific, Auntie Sylvia, our generous host. If you want to say something before we
Thank
sign
you
off.
so much, Silly. Yeah, thank you, Sala, and thank you both,
Scarlett.
this
Scarlett.
wonderful lady, for sharing this great topic. Everything that you talk about, that's exactly. But I just wanted to share, like, take 2 minutes, to share. In our community, about like 3 years ago, there was like a young lady was disappeared, and they were all reporting it to the police, everything, all over. They were looking for it, and it was kind of sad. They thought that maybe something, kidnapping or something very damaging, or someone, hurting her. So when it come to a time like after, maybe it was like 2 weeks, almost like 2.5 weeks, they recovered her. And when she came home, it was almost like a big community celebration. So that reminds me of the story in the Bible about the prodigal son. And then he went, and the rest of the children were complaining, how can the prodigal son, go over and then come back? And it was like welcoming. So then from there, I see the parents, were treating her like more like a princess, like wherever they go. And that family are so happy. They're all coming together. And now there is very successful, and see the life of that young person. See, Sally and Scarlett, that this topic here does apply to every single person, because we're all here, even though if you don't have any children or anybody, but at the same time, somebody was taking care of you or raising you. You were raising up by somebody. So that's kind of like either you take care of the elderly or you take care of the kids, but that's how important it is the connection and also the tone of the voice, and that really helps a lot. I see a lot of our people came in and then they were writing, but they were writing in our tongue and language, so at least I just kind of reply to them like in our language. But thank you so much for picking those topics. Those are very relevant, because those are the future generation in our culture, in our community, in our society. Thank you all. Thank you, Silly. Thank you, each and every one of you. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys.
Yeah, remember November 30th. So we are off next week. I'm thankful for everyone on this call, and signing off. We'll see you next week. Thanks all.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Recording stopped.